Greetings and welcome to the Goblin King's Compendium of Creatures. Today I'm joined by a friend, Magnus.
Hello.
Today we are going to be speaking about dragons, the different classifications of dragons. Words are escaping me today.
Words are always difficult.
And we'll also talk about different lore, probably some different things in media involving them, and stuff in different games and the like. I'm not sure if we have any viewers at the moment because I didn't click comments because I'm a doofus. Let me make sure my volume's up all the way because my hearing is not great.
Hello, Robbie.
Hello from Scotland. Hello, Robbie. I don't know if I've turned my volume up or if I've muted myself.
No, I can still hear you.
Did I miss something? Was I supposed to open something?
I turned it down to where I couldn't hear anything. Yeah, because I'm a doofus.
It happens. Technical difficulties tend to be a thing.
Yeah, well, I'm using a friend of mine's headset because I'm at their place, and yeah, what is up on the volume on my headset at the house is down on his headset. So, hello, Mama D.
Hi, Mama D. Hello, Samantha.
So, is there anything you would like to say before we get started, Magnus?
Nope. I just am happy that I could be a part of this and could draw the dragons that we are planning to discuss today.
Awesome. Hello, Samantha. My brain had a whole speech and everything prepared, and now it just went blank on me. Fun.
Tis life. Even the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Probably why I have no plans half the time.
Hello, Charles. So, dragons. They are a very interesting creature throughout history. They are literally one of the creatures that seems to be found in every culture. From the dragons in tales such as the tales of Beowulf, I almost forgot his name, all the way to the different lungs and longs of the Asian cultures,
Absolutely.
all the way to South America where you'll find Quetzalcoatl, which some also say that could be a phoenix. I'm leaning more towards amphitheater, but
Yeah, I would say the same too, just with the typical drawings that you see of Quetzalcoatl. Komodo dragons, yes.
yes. Actually, Komodo dragons are very neat. They have a saliva that can break down whatever they eat, so they don't actually have to chew it.
Yes, that's why it's extremely dangerous to be around a Komodo dragon when they're very aggressive, but also because of that, like one bite and you can probably say goodbye with whatever limit just bit.
Right. But today we are speaking of dragons of the metaphysical variety.
Absolutely.
Such as, I'm going to just bring up, I have my Tarot Draconis Tarot deck with me. And I'm looking for a few good images from.
Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm saying Quetzalcoatl right.
You're saying as good as most people I know. Two in the major arcana is the magician, correct?
Correct.
So this, I don't know if it can be seen
Actually,
very well.
two is not the magician. It's
That's
0 is fool, 1 is magician, 2 is high priestess, I believe.
The high priestess or the priest? The priest is the wrong word for Hierophant.
Hierophant. No, I don't think it's Hierophant. I think it's the High Priestess was 2.
High Priestess.
Well, anyways, okay.
Yep, that's what I
So
thought.
then,
High Priestess.
yeah, then here's the High Priestess in this deck.
Definitely a gorgeous dragon.
Oh yeah. Oh, honestly, the death one in this one, and oh, this one's actually set up in the Marseille style, where judgment and strength are switched, or not judgment, balance and strength are switched. Like here's the dreaded tower.
Of course, nobody likes pulling the tower card, especially not me.
I love the fool in this deck though.
Oh, that's awesome. It's just an egg on a dragon horde.
Yeah. Oh yeah, here it is, the death card. It's a Dracolich.
Oh, yep. Those are definitely some of the more interesting dragons.
No, I love the Temperance card because it's a dragon that's pretty much just chugging the waterfall.
I mean, they breathe fire. That's got to be some form of acid reflux. I'm
Oh,
just
right.
saying.
Right. And I also have this weird problem where my deck is bending for some reason.
Usually they bend after a good bit of use. I know that several of my tarot decks are starting to get that way.
Well, sadly, I don't use mine anywhere near as much as I should. It's pretty much just stays in the drawer. But that's going to change because out of the 2 decks I have, one that's vampires, and then this one. This one loves me. The vampire one hates me.
It's usually how that works.
And it's weird because I'll look at the card, I'll look at what it's supposed to mean, but the card does not look like it means that at all. And I'm just like, okay.
If you shuffle them face up for a while instead of face down, they'll unbend because they'll be slowly bending the other way.
Okay, good to know. Oh, thank you, Samantha. Yes, they are actually very interesting. If you ever do choose to work with a dragon-based tarot or a vampire-based tarot, please listen to this warning. They are blunt. They do not care about your feelings. They will tell you as it is.
That's definitely true for several different decks. I like to always think that tarot decks have their own personality, but I can imagine dragon decks have are pretty straightforward just because working with um dragons in general is very straightforward just from
Mm.
personal experience. They don't beat around the bush. They just kind of tell you how it is.
And if you work with a dragon who's encouraged you to do shadow work, grab them tissues and prepare to feel the feelings because they're not going to let you escape it.
I know that all too well. I know that
So,
one all too well.
for those of you who like cute stuff, here's my little dragon Harriet. The Goblin King had a master once called Hathor, and this is what she left him as a gift.
That's adorable.
Okay, so I figure since I've done a little bit of
Yes, shadow
rambling
work
now,
definitely sucks.
yes, it is. Since I've rambled for a little bit, I believe it's time we should get on with explaining dragons some. So, Miss Jess, if you're back there and you're ready, I guess we will start pulling up the different classifications of different dragons that the great Magnus here has drawn for us. So, starting with the Lindworm. The Lindworm is a dragon with a serpentine body with 2 front legs. It is actually one of them that you won't see a lot in stories and stuff comparative to the Western and Eastern dragon, which are super common.
Absolutely. And it's also said that the lindworm has almost like the head shape of a horse, hence why I gave it more of a horse ear and a mane compared to a more reptilian kind of whole ear that is very common.
And they're also their claws, unlike what's described in most cases with dragons, it's
Hi,
supposed to
William.
be more like eagle or hawk claw, which you also highlighted very well in this drawing.
Thank
Hello
you.
again.
I am not the best at hands or claws, as you will notice throughout the drawing. Some of them I just decided to hide, but it made special note of the lindworm's claws being very talon and bird-like. So I wanted to make sure that was included, as it was a very important feature of them.
Um, the one example I can think of in pop culture of that looked anything like a lindworm, and actually it was more of a lindworm meets Eastern dragon, was the dragon that granted the wishes of the Dragon Balls from Dragon Ball Z.
Yes, then that was more of actually, as you'll see further through, a lung dragon rather than the lindworm.
Or would the dragon that was later in the series that had the muscular humanoid upper body
Yes,
be
the
closer?
one from Namekia was
Yeah,
definitely more lindworm-esque.
yeah. Almost
It
fell on.
shows just how much of a nerd I am knowing the planet's name, but hey.
I just couldn't remember if it was in the Namekian part or if it was closer to GT when they brought that one in. And then let's see, what was next? Because my brain is going on me right now.
Happens to the best of us.
If you could bring up, let's see, what's a good one? Bring up the Drake if you could, please, Jess.
Yep, an key example of me hiding the claws behind something.
And that's fine because honestly, Drakes are one of the types of dragons where the number of claws they have can vary. Some have
Absolutely.
like a human hand amount, some just have three, you know. Rare occasions they'll have two, but usually those probably live closer to the ocean
Yeah.
because they're doing like paddling in the water more than anything else.
And the three kind of shape is actually better for digging in sand, hence why like a lot of tools like that are kind of shaped that way.
And drakes, commonly when people think of drakes, they will think of earth dragons because they predominantly live in either occasionally on beaches and in forests. The horns they usually we sharpen against trees, like some goats are known to do in the wild, and they tend to be protectors of forests. Their treasure is the creatures around them. They are protective. If you ever start studying dragon magic and you realize that the guardian dragon you've been given is a drake, be prepared to be protected. It's not going to let anyone harm
Oh,
you because it's going to screw up anything you trust in this human.
oh, absolutely. They're definitely fierce protectors.
Then let's see. Could you bring up the worm, please?
Oh, this is probably one of my favorites that I drew.
Now, there is a distinction between this and sea serpents. They do commonly look alike, but here's the difference. Worms are burrowers. They tend to live under the ground. If you think of, even though this was a literal worm versus this kind of worm, the sandworms from Beetlejuice. If they were to be classified as a dragon, it would be a worm. Now, worm in this case is spelled WYRM, though some people do spell it like little fishing bait worm. They tend to have rough scales, which allow them to grasp the dirt and push it with their body as they burrow. They also tend to have not just the sharp teeth like what we see here, but sometimes they'll also have flat teeth for chewing through rock as they dig, because they also get their sustenance from nutrition in the earth as well as any animals they manage to eat. They also tend to hibernate a lot because digging all the time can make you tired.
Oh yeah, I can imagine so. I kind of aimed for more of like a snake-like look here for this one, but
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure the face is aerodynamic because they do go through dirt. So I imagined that, you know, getting hit with rocks in the face.
Mm-hmm. And if you have any information on them that you'd like to speak of, Magnus, feel free to chip in at any time.
Absolutely.
Let me see, what's the next one here? Fairy dragon, please.
This is my favorite one that I drew. I did base this off of my leopard gecko, though.
Well, that's fine. It's adorable. Fairy dragons, when it comes to dragons in the magical realm, dragons have the ability to change size. But usually they will choose one particular size they like the most and stick with it. With fairy dragons, though, they almost always prefer to be like this. They like to be small. A dragon that is a cousin of the fairy dragon, and sometimes mistaken for it, is one that I like called the leaf wing dragon. And leaf wings are, like I said, very small. Most of the time they'll fit in the palm of your hand, and their wings look like the leaves of whatever tree they choose to live in. And just like leaves, their colors change with the seasons. And they are very cute. They are very sweet. They'll use if
So I've noticed some are very mischievous as well.
yes.
They definitely live up to the Fae part of their name. They definitely like to play pranks, as I've noticed a few things of mine gone missing.
Mhm. Oh, they're definitely a type of dragon who loves shinies. Shiny things will vanish quickly. Um, but with fairy dragons, one of the beautiful things about practitioners in the old stories is if they had a fairy dragon, because of how small they were, they could wear them as rings. The dragon would just curl up around their finger and pretend to be a ring, so that they would know that that fire spell the wizard just cast was actually the fairy dragon breathing fire on them and just pretending to be a ring the whole time.
Because they're cheeky like that.
Mm. Let's see. Um, my brain is trying to go on me. Eastern Dragon, please.
Yes, this is one of my favorites. It can also be known as the lung dragon.
Mhm. Now, the Lungs slash Eastern Dragons are very interesting for a multitude of reasons. Because when you're talking about a dragon, most people immediately picture Western dragons. But the thing about Eastern dragons is the way they're described when you're actually reading the lore of Eastern dragons. I actually have it here somewhere. Okay, yes. For a brief generalization, the Eastern dragon inherited today has the body of a snake, belly of a frog, scales of a carp, head of a camel, horns of a giant stag, the eyes of a hare, ears like a bull, a neck like an iguana, paws like a tiger, and claws like an eagle. Eastern dragons are described with an angelic authority and beauty. They possess incredible wisdom.
As,
So,
as you can see, I kind of took a artistic liberty here because some of those things would just look like a chimera that should not exist if I
exactly.
decided to draw that.
Um, in the Eastern culture, this is one of the dragons where the number of toes is important. A five-toed, or five-clawed, however you want to say it, Eastern dragon was a sign of the emperor. I believe four toes was a sign of like the priesthood, and then three-toed was like the rest of society. And they were also known to carry what was called a dragon pearl. Now, with dragon pearls, it's believed that whoever they gift them to would be gifted great wisdom. It was also believed that someone who was meant to become an emperor would be given a dragon pearl by a five-clawed dragon as a mark of their authority. But personally, I think the dragon pearls actually probably their eggs.
More than likely. It's also kind of like, I guess, where they got the idea for Dragon Balls and Dragon Ball Z as well, as they were Dragon Pearls, considering that the dragon is definitely a lung dragon, like I
Mm.
drew here. I've also noticed as I was looking for references to draw them that they vary greatly. Some are kind of more spiky and more Western looking, while some have like more like flowing hair down their back, like I did for this one. They all vary greatly. In fact, this is probably the one where I found the most variants.
Mhm. And that's one of the things is they have all these different features. Like one of the things I always notice is they have the whiskers that look like something that you expect off of a catfish.
Yeah, that's exactly
And
what I was thinking.
there is a story, I believe, in Chinese lore where there is essentially, I can't remember if it was supposed to be a carp or a catfish or what, but it's a fish that's supposed to bring wisdom that can turn into a dragon. And
I
it's
think it was a catfish, but I'm not quite sure on that one.
right. But the beauty of it is in different stories, the whiskers on the dragon could be at a different location. Like here, it's up higher on the face, and sometimes it's like right here next to the mouth, almost like a mustache.
And I also noticed that like the number of tendrils can be different too,
Mm-hmm.
because some were drawn with one, some had two, some had like six.
Mm-hmm. And then, how many is that we've done so far? I've lost count.
I think that's four, I think.
Well,
I
if
lost
you will,
count too.
Jess will let you pick the next one, throw one up, and we'll talk about it. The
Ah, the
wyvern.
wyvern. Fun.
Many of you will recognize this great and powerful being from Skyrim. This the dragon that they're all yelling about is a
It's a
wyvern.
wyvern.
So those of us who are big fans of dragons, the moment we saw them scream dragon and saw
That's
this, we're like, that's
interesting,
not a
William.
freaking dragon, that's a wyvern.
Yes, no, that's probably my biggest complaint in like any sort of video games or shows where they're like, dragon, dragon, I'm looking at it. That's a wyvern.
Well, I
That's
just want
not a
to jump in
dragon.
and say anyone who has played the game Ark, wyverns are awful. That's all I'll say. I've been eaten by them so many times.
No, I understand. I play Monster Hunter, which is a game where you kind of fight almost dragons and other creatures and stuff like that. Half of them are classified as wyverns. And getting your butt kicked constantly by a wyvern, yeah, there was a little bit of vendetta drawing this.
Sorry, my friends were coming in and saying hi. I have one particular friend I will introduce is my if the camera will turn. My pet werewolf here. Hi. Well, one of the things that makes a mark of distinction with wyverns versus regular dragons is that wyverns are just unnecessarily aggressive. Uh,
Absolutely.
all dragons,
The yellow jackets of the dragon world.
Oh,
yes,
100%.
all dragons are aggressive to an extent, but most of the time, if you leave a dragon alone, they won't mess with you unless they're like hungry or you owe them like tribute or something if you've made that kind of agreement with them. The wyverns, they don't give a fuck. Oh, there's something moving. I'm gonna attack it. They are literally the honey badger of the dragon world.
Oh yes, they don't care for their own well-being. It's like that moved, I don't like it, I'm going to attack it. They don't care. They're just mean for lack of better words.
When it comes to D&D, it talks about how
Absolutely like cats.
they talk about the different colors of dragons and their temperaments based off that. Out of all the temperamental dragons that are in D&D, wyverns would probably be the white dragons that are the ice dragons because the white dragons in that are the ones who will get pissed at anything, turn you into a statue, and then display you.
Oh yes, no. The only thing worse than a red dragon is a white dragon.
Yes, because if a red dragon finds you at least a little bit entertaining, he might
Yeah,
let you live a little bit longer. The white dragon just do not
I
give a fuck.
no white dragon's like, nah, you die now.
And then What's the next one you got for us, Jess? I'm enjoying this.
The traditional Western dragon.
Yes. Or, which reminds me of my all-time favorite Western dragon, Draco, voiced by the wonderful Sean Connery.
This, however, I actually based on my own dragon guide. She is a purple dragon and definitely gives me blunt advice, so I kind of had to honor her in my own way by drawing her.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I have a guide that's also a Western style dragon that is all white with black horns. So,
She is mostly purple with little spatches of green.
and Western dragons are the ones most people think about when they hear the word dragon, or at least in this part of the world. In Europe, in America, this is what we think of. If you go to Japan and say dragon, they probably think of the Eastern dragon because that's what their culture is familiar with. And even when you think Dungeons and Dragons, this is what pops into your mind. And that's because that's what culture has designed dragons to be. Though there are many kinds, this is the one that pops out in people's imaginations because you have the powerful legs, the ability to breathe the elements, giant, powerful wings. I mean, hold on, I've got to read this quote because it's one of my favorites when it comes to dragons of this nature. One of the greatest. Okay, weird. Scroll, 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 scroll. My armor is like tenfold shields, my teeth are swords, my claws spears, the shock of my tail a thunderbolt, my wings a hurricane, and my breath death. Smaug from The Hobbit.
Definitely a good quote.
He also says, I kill where I wish, and none dare resist. I laid low the warriors of old, and their like is not in the world today. Then I was but young and tender, now I am old and strong, thief in the shadows. Smaug is a wonderful example of a Western dragon who has a
Absolutely.
sword and he is trying to make sure that you know that this is his.
And I think it's interesting that like different dragons have different hordes. It's just all what they find value in. Uh,
Exactly.
so like one dragon may hoard gold and riches, while other hoards more like nature and things like that, or places.
Oh, trust me, that's something we're going to get into here in a minute because D&D plays into that concept really well with some of their
Absolutely.
stuff. What's the next dragon you got for us, if any? Because I don't know if we went through it.
Yes.
The amphitheater.
Yeah.
Please do not mistake this beautiful being for a wyvern. That will
No.
very much offend them. Amphitheaters are actually probably some of the most peaceful of all the dragons because they like to act as guides. They say that if you get lost in a desert and you look up and you see an amphitheater flying above, follow it. It'll lead you to someplace safe. They tend to
And
have wings like a bird and a body like a snake. This is the one we were talking about at the beginning. This is what Quasicotl is supposed to look
yes, it was definitely one of the more fun ones to draw despite not being the best at feathers. It was just
like.
fun and
Listen.
relaxing, and I based almost like the body off like an anaconda.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you look at how they, excuse me, describe Quasicotl, it was supposed to be what appeared to be a snake with eagle's wings, which this is what we're seeing. And it's just, to me, it was one of the dragons listed in mythology that I felt like got looked over so easily.
Oh, absolutely. Because most people are like, oh well, maybe it's a phoenix or a giant bird. No, no, they
Right.
deserve to be a dragon in their own right.
And some people try to explain off, oh, they just saw an eagle that was killing a snake. No, no, they saw an amphitheater. And I will let you know right off the bat, for all of you who are curious, the way this dragon's name is spelled, it's not what it sounds like.
No, no. Even trying to spell it was a doozy. Just trying to
Oh,
spell
yeah,
to look up
I've,
references.
I've got a page here where it has three of the different spellings: Amphipetre,
Yep.
Amphithetre, which is the spelling I prefer because at least sounds kind of like what you're saying. Then Amphitere. All those you go, huh?
Yeah, basically.
But they are very peaceful, very kind, and I don't know for certain, but every amphitheater I've ever had any experience with has almost always been female.
That's interesting.
So I'm not saying they're only female, but I think they're kind of like calico cats in a way. There's
Like the
way more.
majority of them.
Like I think the majority are probably female with like a small percentage being male.
Yeah.
Do we have any others, or do we just need to go on discussing? Wait,
No,
didn't we?
we've already done the worm.
Yeah, we've already
So
done.
I
that
think
might have
So
been all of it.
we got fairy dragon, wyvern, eastern and western dragons, worm, drake, and that one, and lindworm.
yeah, okay.
Yep, that was all of them.
Now
Just double checking.
there are other dragons out there, and if you ever practice dragon magic and open your third eye and start seeing the ones that like to roam around in the astral plane, you will realize there are so many varieties.
Absolutely. Like I have 3 dragon guides that I work with. I have the Western dragon that I drew. Then I have one that has the body of an Eastern dragon, but wings like a Western dragon. Like almost looks like a Western dragon, or sorry, yeah, a Western dragon, but with a longer body. And then I
Mm,
have one that is a Leviathan, and she is almost like a worm, but in the water.
mm. That is another one that a lot of people they know about, but they don't seem to really pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So many people get in the habit of calling them sea serpents because of how they look, but the proper name for them is Leviathan.
Leviathan.
Um, the most infamous throughout history is, of course, Jormungandr, the world
Yes.
serpent. Also, in other cultures, called the Ouroboros because he's supposed to be a giant. They always refer
Snake.
to him as serpent
Yep, eating
that
his own tail.
bites his own tail, and is supposed to represent the never-ending continuation of a sphere or circle, and such as time and life and all that.
And sometimes you actually see it in the infinity symbol too,
Hmm.
as I have an Ouroboros like that on my grimoire.
Ooh, what movie was it that had a grimoire like with that symbol on it? Was it Warriors of Virtue that had that on it?
I am not sure actually.
I remember there was a movie like they had this big green tome and it had a
That's
gold
actually
snake, a gold Ouroboros snake.
pardon me, my trying to grab it. It's got stickers all over it, but as you can see, it's a green
Yeah,
Ouroboros snake.
yeah. Oh, that's gonna bug me. I'll look it up later. That's and then there another good example. Hi Serafina, hello Lena.
Hello.
Hello DNTV, whichever one of you it is, because I'm not sure if that's true or not. Um, I have one that likes to work with me that has told me that it's supposed to be called a goblin dragon.
Of course.
And you're probably thinking, oh, some weird little grotesque dragon. Not quite. Think of it like a drake, like we showed earlier, but it's short and it's got like this fat kind of. It's got a fat butt with thick legs, a tail about this long, and it's got short, squat front legs, but its head looks kind of like a dodo bird head with little teeth coming below the beak part.
I am going to eventually draw that just because it sounds fun to draw.
And they have like this little line of hairs going from the middle of their head down their back all the way to the tip of their tail. Well, mine in particular is all white with a rainbow of those hairs going down its back. And I'm not talking about a little bit of black, a little bit of brown, a little bit. No, I'm talking neon
One
rainbow.
like rainbow. Like it just got out of a rave.
Right. Like it's about to go down the streets during a pride parade. It is ready to go.
Hey, June's the month for it.
Right. Exactly. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier the leaf wing. If you ever work with dragons and you notice that your dragon has one body color, but then there's a big silver spot on its back, pay attention because these can be some confusing dragons. These are called silverbacks. Silverbacks, if they look kind, sweet, and loving, they will bite your freaking head off because they are actually very aggressive because their personality contradicts their appearance. The nicer
But
they
we
look,
have
the
one
meaner they can be.
terrifying. That's probably the sweetest one.
Exactly. If yours looks like, oh my god, it's going to destroy me and rip me to shreds, it probably just wants to cuddle.
Probably.
Um, Now, there are, of course, the occasional exceptions, but generally speaking, the thing with silverbacks is their appearance contradicts their personality. And which is good because it helps with survival. Um, Another thing that I like about dragons, yes, a lot of people call them by he or she when they speak to them. They're actually androgynous. They
Yes.
can be whatever gender they want to be.
That's
If they're
usually when I start working with them, I ask what they prefer to be called.
Mhm. And the wonderful thing about them is they're extremely intelligent. Oh, there is, let's say there's 5,000 dragons in the world. Oh, almost all of the dragons are deciding they're going to identify as male, and it's mating season. Well, looks like half of us need to change our freaking minds real quick.
Yeah. Whoops. Gotta change that.
And that's one of the things I love is because, with people, it used to be if you weren't sure about someone's gender before, before the whole non-binary and transgender thing was more out in the public and known, you could usually safely rely on the sound of someone's voice. If they had a more feminine voice, it's probably a female. If they had a more masculine voice, it's probably a male. Not with dragons.
No, never.
Not with dragons. You will be sitting here hearing this, I will destroy you. And it is the sweetest female dragon out there, and you will never know.
Oh yes, no, that's definitely how I call her Mina. That's definitely how she sounds. She can sound absolutely terrifying. The sweetest thing ever. She has such a bubbly personality. Will tell you right off if you mess up, but
Mm-hmm. Oh,
she's
don't get me wrong. Just because they're kind and loving does not mean they're not still
oh
blunt.
no, absolutely not.
Um, Another thing about many, many, many dragons that you will learn is that their horde will differ greatly. D&D talks about this. If you are part of the newer generation of D&D players who's only really played 5th edition, you might not know about these books. They actually had some books that I want to get my hands on so badly, called the Draconomicons. And to
Yeah, I
my
think I've heard of
knowledge, there are two of them. One for metallic dragons, and one for all the other dragons, which I
Yeah.
thought was kind of dumb that they didn't just select each group and put them in their own individual books. But it's D&D; it's their property. Let them do what they want. But they explain that literally every color of dragon has a different thing they like. For example, blue dragons, which are the dragons who are usually going to be your leviathans, love to collect ships permanently.
Mm, uh, Prozori, my Leviathan, she likes to collect seashells.
Mhm. Gold dragons are known to collect books and tomes because they like to learn as much magic as they can. Copper dragons collect friends. They
Those are my
literally
favorite.
and they collect stories. They literally will sit there and find another dragon. The funny thing is, the dragon they like to mess with the most is red dragons because red dragons like to talk shit. Copper dragons like to play pranks and be wise asses. So they will literally get into an argument trying to be a bigger smartass to each other until eventually the red dragon gets too annoyed at the frickin' copper dragon and just goes away.
Oh yeah, their favorite pastime. Mark off the most.
And bronze dragons are similar in that regard, except where the copper dragon wants to entertain you, be a dork, and play pranks, the bronze dragon just wants to talk. They will hold a conversation for days. Then you have silver dragons who really like humans, but to the way it explains it in D&D, they kind of have an identity crisis. They will use polymorph to turn themselves into humans and live among humans because they like humans that much. But they tend to like to collect, if I remember correctly, weapons and armor. Gold red dragons, they will collect gold and pretty much anything they can get their hands on because they're supposed to be just like some of the angriest and greediest.
Yes, that's why typically in art, especially if they have any knowledge of D&D or anything like that, you typically see red. The the dragon color is red for the ones who have like the piles of gold and everything, because those are what the red dragons are known to covet. They want gold, they want the shinies, they want all of that. They're very greedy creatures.
And then, of course, like I said before, ice dragons collect you in the form of an ice sculpture that they turn you into.
Yeah, no, don't we don't mess with ice dragons.
Um, Black dragons, they're weird because commonly in the stories, they live in swamps and their breath is acid. So they pretty much just collect the dead.
Uh, I have okay, so the my last dragon guy that I have, the one I said that is almost has like the shape of a long but wings and the body
Mm-hmm.
kind of type of a western dragon is a black dragon with bits of gold on him.
Mm-hmm.
He likes rocks. He wants all of my crystals. Particularly, I got him a gold sheen obsidian egg, and that is his favorite thing in the world.
I've actually used to have a black dragon that had a white mane, blue eyes. He was a Western style, and he was able to use both ice and lightning. And he has been gone for a very long time now. I don't know if he passed on or if he's just in hiding or what. And when he was around, I was always quick to notice anything that shined. The weird thing was is it caused me to collect things that would be trash that my brain would go, I could use this to make something cool.
I keep wondering if there's another one that's been around since I was little because I collect bottle caps and I don't know where that obsession came from.
And there's just There's so many neat things. Speaking of whether or not he may have passed on, that is another interesting subject when it comes to dragons. Um, I'm going to plug this just because it's a great video and this guy's a great content creator. If you go on YouTube, look up Mr. Rex. It's RHEXX. He does what they didn't tell you about videos about different creatures in D&D. And I mean, he goes deep. He the dragon ones he did, it's like the dragon anatomy, what happens when dragons die, you name it, he's pretty much gone into it. I really wanted to bring up a list of his stuff and go over it, but this is the one thing that I do remember that I absolutely loved, which was when dragons die, there's a reason they hoard all this stuff, because in D&D, when a dragon dies, it has to consume its hoard before it dies. And then when it dies, it goes in one of two ways. It'll either fly to the top of the highest mountain where there's like this nexus of magical energy from all the dragons that have died there. And it will die, and its magical energy will join into that nexus, making that nexus stronger. And in D&D, if you step through this nexus, it can literally throw you into any different plane of existence.
That's interesting. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, I've really wanted to put it in a campaign. And the other is after they consume their hoard, they'll find a location they find suitable, and they will become one with the world there, forming mountains or caves, or in the case of a Leviathan, if it's found an area where it thinks it's some water could really be used, its body will collapse and turn into a river in that area. And it's just so cool. Sorry, my ears are itching.
All good. All been there.
That's the only thing I don't like about big over-the-ear headphones is sometimes when you're hearing stuff, it can make your ears itch. And so they'll become one with nature, and it got me to thinking, what if in D&D some of these caves and stuff that we end up in that has treasure strewn all about it was the body of a dragon who not all of its hoard was consumed as it died because maybe it consumed more than it needed to. And so the leftover treasure just got scattered throughout its body as it turned into a cave.
That's definitely an interesting concept. Like, imagine just like having that party go through and being like, there's like a jewelry box or some sort of like something wedged in the cave wall that just looks just out of place. Or if you want to make it terrifying, thinking about, hey, they consume their hoard. Think about the ones that collect friends or those ice dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Just like half like skeletons or the dead or frozen remains just sticking out the walls. How creepy that would be.
Because an ice dragon, odds are, if it turns into a cave or something, it's going to turn into an ice cave.
Of course.
So imagine just walking through and looking into the wall and just seeing an adventure frozen in place.
Yes.
In the wall itself. You're just going to be like, this can't be good. And then, if they have an egg within them that hasn't hatched, or they haven't, I don't know if they lay eggs or if they just spit them up or what, I don't know. That's a part of the thing that I've always been curious about, like how I've always wondered how dragons mate, but at the same time, I feel like it would be rude to ask for them to show me.
Yeah, it's like, hi, I have some questions about your reproduction.
Right.
You shouldn't ask that to a dragon. That's not.
Because
no,
it would be very rude and very inappropriate, but at the same time, it's one of those things. I just want to know.
And there's just like, that's questions you don't want to answer.
Because just imagine like the birds and the bees conversation from a dragon parent to their dragon child. You see some when two dragons really love each other. But
it ends with, and then you give birth to an egg.
And then, but like, what if egg is still within them as they die, and the egg is just sitting somewhere in the cave. Well, what if the egg hatches over time? Will it become the dragon that inhabits that cave, then eventually go off and become its own cave? And what if it's just like an endless cycle like that for some dragons?
That'd be really interesting.
Because I mean, worms. What if the weird mine shafts that no one remembers ever having dug or anything that people
Or-
find?
Are just worms. Dead worms.
Yeah, they died with their mouth open, and so you go inside them, and you're essentially in what appears to be a mine shaft, but it's actually the inside of the worm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime you enter
Well, I
a
mean,
cave from I'd be like, is this a dragon?
just like anytime, like when they show them in movies, you always see the stalagmites and stalactites up on right at the doorway that always looks like teeth, like scary teeth, like you're entering a mouth. What if you are?
Da-da-da-da.
So it's just when it comes to mythological creatures, dragons are some of the most interesting because you will find so many things. You will find.
Absolutely. And they're definitely one of the most diverse, too.
Mhm. And they're one that you can literally find lore in just about every culture. That's why I've always said I don't understand how people can expect other people not to believe in vampires, fairies, or dragons because of those three things. They are found in almost every culture's lore in
Every
some form
culture.
or fashion. How can every culture in the world have lore about them if they either A, actually existed, or B, there was something that existed that was so much like
Yes,
it
absolutely.
that that was the only other explanation.
Yeah, and as Decom said, in every popular type of media as well,
Mm-hmm.
is always vampires, werewolves, and dragons, and fae. Whether they call them the fae or fairies or anything of
Or
the
little folk.
diverse, yeah, any sort of fae type. They are the most popular in media, so they may be strange, but you have to think like, hey, this is, there's through so much stuff, there has to be at least a little truth to the strange.
Mm-hmm. And it is 6:54, which means we'll soon have to be getting off. So, is there anything you would like to add, Magnus? Any little insights or experiences you've had?
In working with dragons, if anybody's ever interested, they definitely demand respect. They're the type that if you show them respect, they will show you it back, but it also has to be earned. They are very proper individuals, and they they want to make sure that you're the type of person that they want to be working with. Says some of the dino fossils aren't dragons. Yeah, no, that's also another thing. That also could be a
Mhm.
thing. But they are worth working with if you are interested. As long as you give them the respect that they deserve, they will be with you through thick and thin. I mean, Mina's been with me for years now, and I can always rely on her. So it's worth it. They're amazing creatures. You just have to know how to respect them. And honestly, like, just any sort of info on dragons is always cool to learn about
Mhm.
through D&D or any sort of media.
Right. And you also just reminded me of a very good point, which I'm sure in your case you had permission in this situation. But when it comes to dragons, they are very, very strict about their names.
Absolutely. That's why I only use nicknames. I never give away a full name.
With the dragons, and this is also believed to be another creature lore as well, names are power. If a dragon gives you a name to call them, even if it's not their actual dragon name, it is a name that when you speak it, they show up because they know you're calling their name. That means they work with you. So, just like when you introduce yourself to a dragon, I've literally had some dragons that said, "Please don't tell me your real name. Give me a name you want me to call you," because they understand that names carry power. In some cultures, it's believed that if you know a dragon's true name and you speak it, they are then yours to command and they must do everything you say. Now, personally, I think if a dragon feels threatened by you having their full name and you're not really their ally, they'll probably just eat you and save themselves
Oh,
the trouble.
absolutely, absolutely. Like I
But,
said, like I had permission from the two names that I said to say those names, and
right.
even then they're more of nicknames. The one that didn't, the black dragon didn't want his name at all spoken, so it's just like again the respect thing.
And just like the very first dragon I worked with, when he told me his name, which I don't share his name, but that's just a personal choice of mine because it's my way of showing him more respect. He told me his name. I immediately saw how it was spelled in my head, and I said, "No disrespect, but I've never cared for that spelling of that name. Can I spell it this way, please?" And he's like, "Sure, it's still pronounced the same. I don't care."
Yeah, exactly. As long as you pronounce it right, I don't care how you spell it.
and and on top of that, like whenever I met my dragon, I've learned that the you in the spiritual world may not always look like you in this world.
No, never.
My version of me in the spiritual world that I first saw, I had paler skin than I do now, which is saying something. Um, I had long white hair and silver eyes. And the name I heard for me was Rorik, Rorik. And my nickname in that world was the Pale because everything on me was pale. I had pale colored eyes, pale white hair, pale skin. I lived in a town that was literally on a glacier that had stopped moving in this world. Well, I am climbing up this mountain running from these men on horseback, and these men have these spears that have blades shaped like crescent moons, and they are determined to kill me. I finally get to the top of this mountain, and it's like this is the top of the mountain, and there's a sheer cliff face that's just straight up smooth. You cannot climb any higher. And I'm sitting here going, "Crap, I'm gonna die! Crap, I'm gonna die!" I turn around, I look. These men are both standing in front of me on their horses with their swords pointed at me, or spears pointed at me. And then I hear this loud sound, and I look up and see this black dragon with a white mane and blue eyes swoop down, catch them both up, and eat them whole in one bite. And then turns to look down at me, and I'm like, I just went from the frying pan to the oven. If I wasn't dead before, I'm definitely dead now because I'm about to be eaten by a dragon. Those other two are probably more of a meal than I am, but I'm at least going to be a good toothpick. And he looks at me, he tells me the name he wants me to call him and says he's here to protect me. After I woke up, I could still feel the energy I felt coming from that dragon in this world. There were times me and my mom would be traveling somewhere and I'd be afraid that something bad was going to happen. And I would look at the window and I could see the shadow of this dragon flying above the car. And so I always knew he was there. And in recent years, I got into studying dragons again. And if you're wanting to study dragon magic, there's a few places you can go. You can get DJ Conway's book, Dancing
Yep,
with
I have
Dragons,
those.
and Dragon Magic, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, he has three.
Magick. I don't know. I don't know the third one. I've only seen the first two. Um, And then if you go on YouTube, there's a guy named Drake Valentine who does dragon magic videos, and he has different names for the dragons, and he goes through not only the four elemental rulers, but the rulers of light and dark, the ruler of chaos, the maelstrom. He covers the 9 dragon lords, and he also covers stuff about Norse mythology, the Goetia, all kinds of other stuff too. And it's really good information. But when it comes down to it, when you're studying dragon magic, the greatest lessons you're going to learn is from the dragons you work with.
Absolutely.
And I think we are now out of time. Any last things you would like to add, Magnus?
Nope. Thank you so much for having me on.
It was a pleasure to have you on. I'd love to do another video with you sometime.
Absolutely. I'm always up for it.
Thank you, Jess, for being our editor, and thank you, viewers, for joining us here today. Y'all have a wonderful day, and may Dragonfire light your path.
Have a wonderful